As we all know, over the years, these rights have been qualified and redefined. For example, the right to bear and keep arms has been in and out of the courts for years, but to this very day, there are specific weapons that the law allows you to have. None of these rights have been reversed, turned on its head, turned upside down. None, except the free exercise of religious expression. Is there anyone in here who would get upset if Uncle Sam came to you today and said, no more freedom of speech? You either say the right stuff that we want to hear or we're throwing you in jail. Anyone here want to hear that from Uncle Sam? Anyone here want to hear from Uncle Sam, we control the press? Would you get upset? Would you stand for it? No. Is that list still? We understand how important these rights are to us, don't we? But the one that got completely turned upside down is the one that has to do with religion. Scripturally, let's just get right to the point. In the story of Joseph, which is quite a long story, God took the bad and hateful actions of the brothers and turned them into a good thing for Joseph, his family, and really for all of the famine-starved people of Israel in years to come. The brothers of Joseph thought they were getting rid of him when they sold him to a caravan of people headed for Egypt. That was their plan A, get rid of Joseph. But if you read the Joseph story in its entirety, you will discover that God can have a plan B for the good, even when certain people execute their plan A for the bad. The Bible is just filled with stories like that, where God is able to pick up the pieces of something that is a mess because someone put it into a mess, and to turn it into something good. We'll come back to that point. Last week we said that this First Amendment reflected the genius and the wisdom of our founding fathers. You see, I don't have any doubt but that God was right with those founding fathers in what they wrote, whether it's a Declaration of Independence or a Constitution or a Bill of Rights. I don't have any doubt but that God was right there helping them write these documents so that America's foundation would be solid rock. I truly believe God was involved with all of that. They didn't want a national church like the King of England had forced upon them. They didn't want the government to pass laws that would inhibit the free exercise of religious expression, either in the church or outside of the church. All of these 10 amendments were admonishments made upon the government. I mean, read them. Just read all 10 of the Bill of Rights. Without exception, they all are telling the government, you stay over there, you can't come any farther here. Because of our freedoms, because of our liberties, because of our God-given inalienable rights. They were all keeping the government at bay. The Bill of Rights protected the people from an overly aggressive government if it ever came to that. Think how refreshing such a concept of that really is. Instead of the government assuming more and more control and power over the people, the Bill of Rights gives the freedom and the liberty to the people to hold the government at arm's length and accountable for its decisions. Think how refreshing that is. A few years ago, United Methodism here in Missouri took a wrong turn. The annual conference and its staff and the leaders began to act as if the churches in our conference existed for the sake of the conference. Whereupon the truth is, the conference and its staff and its leaders, and above all its bishop, exist for the sake of the churches. For 12 years, this was the concept here in Missouri. Well, all of that now has been rearranged, rethought, and put in its proper place. But you can turn something like that, who exists to serve whom, you can turn that completely upside down and reverse it and make it mean something completely the opposite of what it's supposed to be. The church doesn't exist for the conference. The conference exists for the church. And the government is no different. The people do not exist for the government. The government exists for the people. Why do certain people squirm when they hear that? Why? Because they believe something differently. The government, founded by the founders of this nation, the government believed the government should serve the people. The founders had it right. The First Amendment did not get turned upside down all at once. It didn't happen with just one thing that happened. It's kind of like a boy who just goes bad. It doesn't necessarily happen with just one thing. It's first this and then that and then this over here. It's a progressive thing. First, there was the 1947 Supreme Court decision of Engel versus Vitale. We've talked about that case in earlier messages. For the first time in 1947, American history, Christian principles were separated from the public education when the court struck down school prayer. The court completely denied President Jefferson's expression of separating church and state by redefining the word church. For nearly 2 centuries prior to this case, the courts defined church as being Anglican, Roman Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, and so on. But in this case, the Engel versus Vitale, the Supreme Court redefined the word church to mean any religious activity performed in public. From 1791 to 1947, the First Amendment meant that government could not regulate the free expression of religion of people. But in 1947, the Supreme Court, in essence, said, no. We need to change this a bit. We don't think Jefferson used the wall separation phrase in his letter to the Baptist ministers at Danbury to protect the free exercise of religious expression. We think Jefferson used that expression to stop religious expressions happening in the public forum.